Hello everyone, and good morning to all of you. Let me start by thanking the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, Incheon Metropolitan City, Incheon Port Authority, and Yonhap News Agency for organizing the inaugural Incheon International Ocean Forum 2020 and for inviting me to share a few perspectives. Now, while we have quickly grown accustomed to video conferencing this year, it's still very strange meeting like this. I would have much preferred to meet all of you there at a Songdo Convencia, but we'll have to settle for second best. Hopefully, the next meeting will be a physical one. Now, Korea has been very diligent in its fight against COVID-19, and I just want to take the opportunity to wish everyone a safe meeting. In my keynote today, I would like to share three perspectives. The first, as far as pandemics are concerned, actually we've been here before and it will happen again. The second perspective, that while there are many uncertainties, I believe there are a few big certainties. And thirdly, in supply chain specifically, building back better requires new urgency in collaboration in two areas, digitalization and sustainability. So let me take the first perspective. We have been here before. Let us start by thinking about the world that we are living in right now. A lot of anxiety about COVID-19, over 1 million deaths in less than a year. And experts say that by spring next year, we could see the second million. This is very distressing. The ongoing pandemic hits communities around the world in waves. And second and third waves have shown to be harder to manage than the first ones. Because during the first wave, nobody knew what was going on, and at least people were afraid enough to take action. With subsequent waves, there seems to be complacency. Certainly very stressful times, and many call it unprecedented. But let me share you a few pictures from the past, specifically around June 1918, about 100 years ago, the time of the Spanish flu. Now that was a pandemic which struck during the later period of the First World War. For those who are familiar with history, World War I lasted from 1914 to 1918. But do you know why it was called the Spanish flu? Especially when it did not start in Spain. Now I understand the reason was that because the countries were at war with each other, many did not want to report the number of people infected in their respective countries. They were afraid that this would give their opposing countries somewhat of a psychological advantage. And Spain was neutral. It was the one that reported faithfully, and hence the name Spanish flu. In this picture, you can see people gathering together, not quite safely distanced, but with masks on, facing the anxiety of their time. Now here is another scene, one that I'm actually quite familiar with because PSA helped to build several community facilities like this one in the picture in Singapore. In fact, much bigger than this, and a couple of them sit on our Tanjong Pagar terminal. Similarly, we saw many patients. And a scene from within the community, wear a mask or go to jail. Wow, familiar scenes. But we are actually looking at history a century ago. So all in all, not quite unprecedented. The Spanish flu infected 500 million people, or about 30% of the known population in the world at that time, and claimed the lives of what is estimated to be 50 million. Today, I don't think we'll get to those kind of numbers, but suffice to say that our whole world has been turned topsy-turvy. Tragic, disconcerting, disastrous are the words that have been used to describe these very difficult times. At the same time, these events could also be seen from a different perspective, especially for those who thrive on perhaps discovery, mission, adventure, and renewal. Such times can also be deemed exciting. Exciting not because we lack empathy or remorse for the lives that are lost, but exciting because we believe that the human spirit can find its greatest moments. Just like 100 years ago, a pandemic swept through this land, and people found their way through it. Livelihoods were rebuilt. The world was built back better. And this time, we shall certainly hope to do the same, but differently, in line with the current realities. Moving on to the second perspective, focus on these certainties. Throughout the global supply chain and logistics industry, we have all seen and faced many challenges this year. Operations were disrupted. Trade volumes came down sharply over a few months. GDP forecasts in the world by the experts were depressing, and a lot of uneven performance all around the world. Compared to the start of this year, we have now achieved a certain level of confidence in handling the pandemic, and economic activity is gradually recovering. But I believe we will still continue to see a protracted period of economic impact, with different pressures felt by different industries and hence different countries. Industries that rely on mobility, travel, tourism, hospitality, and retail have been severely affected. And they are weighing on the minds of policymakers and people who are looking at the economic aspect, especially with respect to unemployment. On the other hand, for industries related to medical technologies, pharmaceuticals, and services that are digitally enabled, we have seen selective growth. But on the whole, businesses are still leaning towards safety and caution. Capital expenditure has come down. Cash conservation is still key. Investors have withdrawn more than $100 billion from developing markets. And governments around the world have spent even larger sums, trillions, in the fight against COVID. Globally, there is a challenge on leadership and nervousness about the way recovery will happen. There are also concerns that we could be seeing a K-shaped recovery, a recovery where there are significant differences between the winners and the losers, and people who may be impacted for a prolonged period of time. So indeed, we will be faced with a whole new world, which is different in many ways from the last one. But amidst all these uncertainties, I want to describe to you 4 certainties. Number 1, we should accept that geopolitical differences will continue. The issues in the world are challenging countries to find common ground. There is a deep sense that there will be winners and losers, and people within the countries are pressing their leaders to secure their future, perhaps even at the expense of other countries. Multilateral institutions are under siege, and there is a technological decoupling. Even though there may be global supply chain and global manufacturing, I suspect that there will be a deglobalization of certain business models. Organizations will try to manage a global business while being sure that they are robust against possible issues that may crop up in different countries in the future. Supply chain deglobalization is one of the manifestations of this underlying trend. The second certainty is the tech and digital-driven revolution. About 4 or 5 years ago, we were introduced to this term called Industrial Revolution 4.0. At that time, in PSA, we asked ourselves, wow, what does this mean for us? And we started an engagement internally, starting, I think, in March 2017, called No Ordinary Disruption. Engaging the entire organization around the world, we organized regular sessions throughout the years, digging in to understand what was happening in the world, how it would affect our customers, ourselves, and how PSA can play a role orchestrating the supply chain from end to end. COVID-19 has indeed exposed the weaknesses in global supply chains, and this will accelerate technological and digital adoptions. Now, there is no way to arrest or stop technology. When you break eggs to make an omelette, you can't turn the omelette back into the egg. Similarly, we cannot uninvent technology, so we must learn how to use it well, and to govern it. The third certainty is the urgency to remake human capital. I don't think there is any doubt among us now that the new economy skills needed to enable each of us to value add tomorrow are quite different from what it was in the past. So how we will learn becomes a big challenge. As that happens, the social compact between government and society, employers and employees will also need to be rewritten. Values will be questioned. New jobs will be created. And all old jobs that used not to command respect may need to be revalued. The fourth certainty is the climate sustainability challenge. It has not gone away. It will not go away. And it requires the best and the brightest, as well as everybody else, to faithfully tackle it for enough of a period of time for the world to adjust its course. So we see these certainties of geopolitical tensions, emerging technologies, the urgent need to remake human capital, and a focus on sustainability. Now, all of these certainties have implications for our company, PSA, and indeed also for all of us in related industries. And that brings me to my third perspective, the need to urgently collaborate on common and existential challenges. In the short term, at PSA, our focus has been on building resilient operations while keeping an eye on the future. In the past few years, we have been on a journey of transformation. We have strengthened our position as a leading port group, built adjacencies across the logistic industry beyond the port in order to become a trusted partner to cargo stakeholders on an end-to-end basis. Our current global network encompasses over 50 locations in 26 countries around the world, and a portfolio comprises 60 deep sea, rail, and inland terminals, as well as affiliated businesses, industry parks, warehouses, as well as marine services. So beyond the port services that has laid the foundation of the PSA brand, we have now developed cargo solutions and co-created in the technology space an Internet of Logistics. Now all this was happening even before COVID-19. Now, with the pandemic, learning from the vulnerabilities in a supply chain that has been exposed, we have asked ourselves the fundamental question: how can we do better as a global logistics supply chain community, collectively, beyond PSA, beyond us individually? And we've singled out two areas that our whole community should proactively and urgently collaborate to co-create solutions that will meet future demands. Common problems, existential challenges. Firstly, how can we all use digitalization to provide supply chain resilience and innovate new logistic products to serve changing customer preferences, ranging from manufacturer to consumer, and all the players in between? Secondly, how can we change our practices and behaviors so that we are able to reduce our collective CO2 emissions and to transition into using new and more sustainable sources of energy? Now, we all know logistics is a team sport, best likened to a relay race with multiple checkpoints. However, more often than not, it can feel less like a team. In fact, while there are often best-in-class services offered by nodes along the supply chain, this is handicapped by the fact that collectively, we have some way to go before we can say that we are all best in class as a group. So while new technologies are there to help us, proper collaboration is still key, and I believe digitalization will be a game-changing enabler, exposing the pain points and encouraging creativity. At PSA and in Singapore, we have platforms such as Portnet and Calista, and Singapore government has TradeNet, that enable better port community interactions and also support smoother transitions between the physical, regulatory, and financial aspects of trade. A complete cargo solutions initiative is in place at PSA to help in creating multimodal solutions for freight forwarders and beneficial cargo owners. This is in addition to advising on trade compliance, supply chain planning, optimization, and fostering resilience. We're also working with international groups such as TradeLens, GSBN, and DCSA to formulate and establish industry, digital, and data approaches for the future. And yes, so it seems we are making progress, but I do believe the pace of change is accelerating and we all need to improve faster. As for sustainability, we all know that the food sector, from production to logistics, is one of the highest contributors of CO2 emissions. So I invite you to imagine the impact on the world if we successfully effect change in just this one sector. Today, 30 to 40% of food produced does not reach its destination in consumable form and needs to be disposed of, due in part to inefficiencies along the supply chain. Solving supply chain failures alone could reduce the amount of food wastage by about $270 billion in value, according to a Boston Consulting Group report, which also estimates this to be about a $1.5 trillion problem by 2050. I mean, this is a complex problem, which is why it's hard to solve. Beneath this high-level problem statement are a multitude of responsible parties, and we are all organized along industrial lines as opposed to jointly working on this food problem. So I think it is about time that the logistics industry takes a deep interest in the end customers and the specific sectors that we serve, understand their specific needs, and co-create new, suitable logistic solutions. For many years, we have commoditized logistics, and we have reduced the average cost of supply chain as a whole to benefit global trade. The choices that we have made were mostly driven by economic and financial drivers that we knew. But we all also know that if we subjected these choices to the climate sustainability test, many of them will not pass. And that is the problem. We will need industry-wide answers that are scientifically consistent, based on data, and hopefully helped by a new set of economic metrics. And we cannot hope for this new framework to spontaneously emerge. As such, we should challenge ourselves to forge coalitions, to tackle well-structured issues, and find answers quickly. In doing so, we can play our part, not just in facilitating global trade, but also to serve a higher common purpose. At PSA, we have a saying that we help to make the world smaller and the world economy bigger. But now going forward, we'll add another phrase, and that is to make the world better too. Last month, we witnessed the launch of the Hyundai Motor Group Innovation Center in Singapore, which will bring the manufacturing of electric vehicles to the heart of Southeast Asia, here based in Singapore. And we hope this venture will be a demonstration of a strong collaboration where Hyundai focuses on providing environmentally friendly vehicles while we support them by delivering equally innovative and sustainable supply chain solutions. In future, we look forward to more partnerships like this. So with that, I wish you all the best of health and a fruitful time at the Incheon International Ocean Forum 2020. Thank you.